Hello there and good evening and welcome to the Jim Bohannon Show from Westwood One Radio. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626, and online you'll find us at jimbotalk.net. You can follow me on Twitter at Jimbo Talks. As you may recall, we recently on this program discussed the GI Film Festival, which is a wonderful program that is made available in the nation's capital annually, usually around the time of Memorial Day. And it was a worthwhile discussion. I noted one particular film which struck me as intriguing, and I wanted to learn more about it. And so tonight, in this portion of the program, we will do just that, starting with an introduction to that film from Gary Sinise.
It's my privilege to introduce to you The Luft Gangster, Memoirs of a Second-Class Hero. This film is an important documentary about the life and legacy of Tuskegee Airman Red-Tail fighter pilot Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson. On his 19th long-range mission in the European theater during World War II, Colonel Jefferson was shot down and subsequently held as a prisoner of war by the Nazis. He survived his experience as a POW and returned to the United States, a nation divided by racial segregation. Director-producer Mike Rott was eager to tell Colonel Jefferson's story, as he is, at age 94, one of the few Tuskegee fighter pilots still living, and Mike felt it was important to document and share this important story with as many people as possible. America's Tuskegee Airmen are truly a national treasure and an inspiration to us all. I'm now proud to introduce this special showing of the Luft Gangster in honor of Black History Month, the Tuskegee Airmen, and veterans everywhere.
And so we will learn more about this movie and about this man, and we will do so tonight with Michael Rott. He is the founder of Dynasty Media Network, director of The Luft Gangster, and joined with us tonight, by the way, in attendance this evening will be his father, Sheldon Rott, who served as co-producer and music director of the film. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Yes. Thank you.
Michael, first of all, the name and the subtitle, the Luft Gangster, L-U-F-T, and then the subtitle making reference to a second-class hero. What does all that mean?
Sure. So during World War II, the Germans, in order to vilify and demonize the American fighter pilots and airmen, they called them Luft Gangsters. So Luft is the German word for air. So when we asked the Tuskegee guys and Colonel Jefferson if they wore that as sort of a badge of honor, they said absolutely, because if the enemy's giving you a nickname, you know you're doing something right. And then as far as the subtitle, Memoirs of a Second-Class Hero, these guys were just treated as second-class citizens in those days. I mean, it was just awful. In fact, the Army War College wrote a 34-page document saying that the assessment of the Negro in combat is that they could not fight and operate machinery, that they would basically they just were not equipped mentally as white soldiers were to fight in the war for their country. But
remarkable.
They
in fact,
were heroes,
we have a
so.
Well, to say the least. We have a clip here. Cut 2 from our audio clips from Luft Gangster. Go ahead.
Came back across the Atlantic Ocean by boat, jubilant, entering New York Harbor, flags waving, Statue of Liberty. Here we come, walking down the gangplank, good thing back home. Bottom of the gangplank, a little white soldier, whites to the right and nigger to the left. God damn it, back home. Back to racism, segregation.
And that's how it was. Very regrettably, there are many stories that have been told over the years of troops of color in this country. For example, with POWs, German or Italian prisoners of war, who might, in some circumstances, have been served in restaurants when they were being transported, but the people guarding them, in this case Americans of color, were not allowed to eat in those restaurants. Prisoners of war, for Pete's sake. Please expand on that.
Yeah, well, I know that the German prisoners were absolutely allowed to go into places that the African American soldiers were not able to go. But Colonel Jefferson he's such an unbelievable guy. That clip that you just heard about his welcome back to America after his service during World War II, he was actually shot down and held as a POW himself for 9 months at Stalag Luft 3, which ironically was the same POW camp. If you're familiar with the movie The Great Escape, Jim, you ever?
Sure.
Yeah, same camp.
Steve McQueen and others. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was there about a year after that happened. So he's a POW by the Nazis. When he's liberated, the locals are telling him, "Hey, there's a place down the road with a bunch of dead people, and we don't know what it is." And back in those days, there's no phone and internet. They didn't know, something could have been happening a mile away. You would have no idea. So they went to.
We have a clip. Yeah. We have a clip from that, and this it would be clip number 4. Again, this is retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson, and what he observed just down the road from his POW camp.
We were liberated by General Patton's Third Army, waiting for transportation up to Le Havre to catch the boat, get back home across the Atlantic. We're sitting there. Somebody said, "There's a place down the road with a lot of dead people." What are you talking about? Remember now, no television, no TV, no Time magazines. We had to find it. About 20 miles down the road, you could smell it before you got to it, because the ovens were still warm where they were burning bodies. I saw Dachau. Horrible. Whatever you see, whatever you've seen, whatever you can think, double it. Piles and piles and piles of naked dead people. And today, someone has the audacity to tell me that the Holocaust never happened.
Colonel Alexander Jefferson, again from the movie The Luft Gangster. Incidentally, luftgangstermovie.com is a website you should note. That's spelled L-U-F-T, luftgangstermovie.com. As we're speaking with the director of the film, Michael Rott, and also his father, Sheldon, who was a co-producer of this particular film. I'm wondering, Sheldon, if we could ask you, how did you come to be involved in this project, you and your son?
Well, my background is in music. I was a music teacher, band director, and also I worked for a while with a Tuskegee Airman many years ago, and sometimes we'd go out together, and he would always talk about how he loved flying. He loved the patter between the planes and the tower, or one plane and another, but he would never tell me about his Tuskegee experience. And I didn't want to pry, because a lot of military people just don't talk about things, and I respected the fact that he didn't want to talk about it. So I was at an event, and a friend of mine invited me to hear a lecture. And it happened to be Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson talking about his Tuskegee experience. I said, well, great. I've been wanting to hear more for years. So I listened to the lecture, and I said, wow. I said, my son Mike just left a position with Apple Company and opened his own company, Dynasty Media Network. And I arranged for Mike and Alex and I to meet, and we thought, well, we'll just do a 5-minute clip and donate it to his family just for posterity. Maybe the Smithsonian would want it. And we started shooting, and this story just got better and better and better. And Mike said, Alex, I think we have a movie here. And 2.5 years later, here we are with several awards. And it's a great inspirational piece, and we're very proud of it. Very proud.
Justifiably so. We'll learn more when we continue here in just a moment. Michael Rott, again, founder of Dynasty Media Network. His father, Sheldon, with us as well, who served as co-producer and music director for the film. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number. We have had on the program members of the Tuskegee Airmen before, and they are, like all World War II veterans, becoming rather rare. The ravages of time, the age of those involved. Let's not forget that, again, unless you signed up underage, the youngest World War II veterans, the youngest, turn 88 this year.
Yeah.
1-866-50-JIMBO, and we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Jim Bohannon Show. As we talk tonight about a remarkable motion picture, it was recently featured at the GI Film Festival based in the nation's capital, the Luft Gangster movie, Luft, which is German for air gangsters. That's how the Tuskegee Airmen were viewed. And, of course, it is a story of a Tuskegee Airman, retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson, who, by the way, would have been with us tonight. We invited him, but I gather that at his age of 92, he was not feeling up to it. I understand also, Mike and Sheldon, that your mom and wife, respectively, Carol Rott, who served as an interviewer and art director on the film, she was also unavailable, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we wish the very best, of course, to both of them. We have a call from Joe in Atlantic City, New Jersey, on the Jim Bohannon Show with Michael and Sheldon Rott about the Luft Gangster. Good evening, Joe.
Well, thank you. I didn't know I was going to be on so soon.
Well, so it turns out that you are. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm worried about the movie, it causes the young people don't, it causes a lot of disruption, upsets people because the Tuskegee Airmen were, it was syphilis, that you haven't talked about that yet.
Well, the Tuskegee, that was an era in which there were experiments that were conducted on African Americans, although they were not conducted on the Tuskegee Airmen. There were some experiments that took place in that rough time period, but that was a different, albeit much more awful story.
Right. Well, let me tell you my story here. Now, when I was in school, I was in vocational school for auto mechanics, and half the year I went to the school, and the other half I was into the Air National Guard here. Mm-hmm. There were 3 mechanics there to teach me things, and 2 were white, 1 was black, right?
Okay. And just from the perspective of understanding the significance of this, roughly what era was this?
The late 70s.
The late 70s. Okay, go ahead.
So, the black gentleman is a friend of mine this day, good friend of mine, right? The other 2 gentlemen really wouldn't even care to teach me a darn thing, but I became good friends to this day. He's in his late 70s, and
right.
We've been good friends to this day.
Well, that's good. That's good. Did you see what you considered significant discrimination in that experience?
Yes. Yeah, I have, I don't know they didn't treat him properly, the one gentleman actually confronted me, put me up against a wall, had his hand on my throat, right?
What, for being friendly to someone of color?
No, this white gentleman, because this one guy...
We can't get into too deeply into this particular experience. Suffice it to say that Joe points out something that is worthy of the discussion, and thank you for your call. And that is that some of the stories that Colonel Jefferson tells about in the Luft Gangster, Michael and Sheldon, some of those stories, he had stories that he could tell later in life. Certainly, he witnessed the great changes that took place, at least institutionally, legally in this country, the civil rights revolution of the mid-'60s. But even after that, things were not, and to this day, are not perfect. Right, gentlemen?
Oh, there's still work to do.
Yeah, for sure.
But, Colonel Jefferson, we've come a long way. To me, the Tuskegee Airmen truly are the fathers of the modern civil rights movement. After their success, they used to have a saying. They used to say, "We dare not fail," because they knew what was at stake. It was every obstacle possible was thrown in front of them to basically by the racist establishment at that time, to basically make sure that hey, we tried it, they're no good, and that's the end.
Yeah, I've often wondered about why it was even done, since there was such a prevailing view, some of it even within the circles of people who were ostensibly liberal about the race issue at that time. Even in those circles, the thought that segregation was a bad thing and that voting rights needed to be enforced, even though they were officially in the Constitution. Even in the ranks of those people, I think there was the view that, we ought to treat them better, but they really aren't up to being soldiers.
Yeah,
isn't that true?
Yeah, and they had a civilian pilot training program back then, and what was one of the most famous parts was that Eleanor Roosevelt went to check on the program, and while she was there, there was a pilot, they called him Chief Anderson, Charles Anderson. He's an African-American man, and she said she wanted to fly with him. And when she did, it was very publicized, and it was just a very huge first step in getting Congress to pass and activate the Tuskegee Airmen. The 99th Pursuit Squadron was the first squadron. They were activated March 22nd, 41.
But a lot of people were hoping that they would fail.
Absolutely, yeah. And what happened is they ended up with the best combat bomber escort record in the European theater of war. The bomber crews ended up requesting them because they knew if they had the Red Tails next to them, they were going to make it home that night.
And for some of them, it was quite a shock. They knew the record of the Red Tails, and for a few of them who on the ground met some of these pilots, that must have been a jaw-dropping moment for more than a few of them.
Oh yeah,
yeah, Jim. I think a lot of that is due to General Benjamin O. Davis. He was in charge of the Tuskegee Airmen. Mm-hmm. He went to West Point, and for 4 years, no one talked to him other than official business. And he was shunned, and he stayed. They wanted him to leave. They tried everything to drive him out, but he stayed. If he wanted, when he went to the lunchroom, he would take his tray, go to a table, and ask permission to join the table. They'd say permission denied. Go to the next table, same thing, permission denied, until finally he wound up eating by himself in a corner. And he had the discipline, and he had the courage and perseverance to lead the Tuskegee Airmen, and he trained them to have that same discipline. What happened is when there would be German planes, some of the escorts would have the urge to go tangle with them, but a lot of times they were just decoys to pull the fighter pilots away from the flying fortresses.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this way, General Davis had them trained, and they were just excellent. There were some people thought that we never lost a B-17 or one of the bombers, but there were a few lost with the Tuskegee Airmen protecting them.
Far fewer than under any other circumstances. We'll take a quick break here and come back. More calls to come. If you're on the line, we'll get to your call right after we come back as we talk with Michael and Sheldon Rott about this movie, The Luft Gangster. Back in a moment. Welcome back to the Jim Bohannon Show as we are approaching the Memorial Day weekend, a time to remember those who served this country, in some cases giving their all. We're talking about a remarkable man, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson, African-American, Tuskegee pilot, and a man who has been the subject of this new movie, The Luft Gangster, German for air gangster. That's how they viewed these remarkable fighter pilots defending our bombers as they tried to bring World War II to a conclusion in Europe. The Luft Gangster LuftGangsterMovie.com is their website. Luft, L-U-F-T, GangsterMovie.com. And we're talking with two of the driving forces behind the film. The director is Michael Rott. His father, Sheldon, worked on the film as co-producer and music director. And we have a call from Robbie in Panama City, Florida. Hello, Robbie.
Hey, Jimbo. First-time caller, long-time listener, my friend.
Glad you're with us.
Yes, sir. Hey, I want to thank the Lord for having General Davis in the position that he was in over the Red Tails, and for every man that was involved in that program, that they persevered. You know, like the movie, you have to go back to the Civil War, like the movie Matthew Broderick, Glory. You know, those back gentlemen fought the Civil War, and they had something to prove like the Red Tails. But what I wanted to say was, my father was 17 years old and enlisted in the military, the Navy. Spent 3 weeks in boot camp and was put on a destroyer and was sent to World War II. And he also, him and his brother, my uncle, survived, and only to be stationed in Pearl Harbor when he got bombed. And he was injured in Pearl Harbor and then went out, you know, disability.
Sure.
But I do want to thank all the vets.
Well, amen to that. We certainly couldn't agree more. It's very important, Robbie, and that's what Memorial Day is all about. And we thank you for sharing your thoughts tonight. I think that we all should feel this way. Although Michael and Sheldon, it occurs to me that, frankly, I don't think Memorial Day is what it used to be. For that matter, neither is Veterans Day in November. It's unfortunate. Yes, fine. Go swimming, go to the beach, barbecue, sit on the patio, do all of that. But at least take out a few moments and remember why you have Monday off, don't you think?
Yeah, Jim, can I say something?
Please,
Since we made this film, we've been so heavily involved with military. We've been involved with American Airlines, and they've introduced us to a lot of people in the military, and we've I'm not a youngster, and I've never met such a nice, fine group of people that this country should be very proud of our military. I'm telling you, seriously, they're just, and especially in Washington, every other person we're meeting has something to do or had something to do with military. And we're just having a great time with and I hear Rolling Thunder's coming in too. So.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, I have seen some collections. I happened to be in Wisconsin this past weekend and saw some motorcyclists who were clearly on their way because it takes a while to traverse this country on a motorcycle, but they were on their way, and it's a remarkable thing if you've never seen it. I certainly hope that everybody will try to observe at least one Memorial Day in the nation's capital. It is far more than worth it. It's very, very moving. Now, among the various audio clips that we had from the Luft Gangster was one that is entitled simply "My Class Picture." I want to play that and then have Michael and Sheldon tell us about that. So go ahead.
The interrogator had a big book. On the front of the book it said, 332nd Fighter Group, Negroes, Red Tails. He opened the book and I saw pictures of every class before me. I knew all these guys. These are my upperclassmen. Finally he got my picture. He said, "Lieutenant, isn't that you? Here's my class picture."
What were the circumstances that Colonel Jefferson was talking about there?
Yeah, so when Colonel Jefferson was captured and taken in as a POW, they brought him into one interrogator initially. Now, this interrogator wasn't SS, and when he started asking Colonel Jefferson, he said, "Have you ever been to Atlanta, Georgia?" And Colonel Jefferson replied, "No, sir. Name, rank, and serial number, just as all captured soldiers are supposed to do." Then he said, "Have you ever been to Washington, D.C.?" "No, sir. Name, rank, and serial number." Finally, he says, "Have you ever been to Detroit?" At that time, he has to say, "Why, of course." The Germans knew damn near everything about him. They had his report cards from his high school, Chatsey High School. He attended Clark College in Atlanta. They had his report cards from there. Howard University in D.C., they had his report cards from there. They knew how much taxes his dad paid on his house.
Where did they get that information? I mean, if you multiply Colonel Jefferson by every prisoner of war that the Germans held, I mean, that would have been a regiment of people just doing research on American POWs. Were the black pilots somehow singled out?
No, it was actually just a massive intelligence gathering, and as Colonel Jefferson says, German Americans were sending stuff back to Germany all this time. And he said, you can go to the tax office and find out how much you paid and the guy next door. And you can find out what your kids' marks were in school and anybody else's.
So there were Nazi sympathizers in the United States who, in any given locality, were sending this information back to Germany. Wow.
Can you even imagine sitting in that chair with the Nazi interrogator pointing at your class picture and telling you what you got in chemistry in high school? And I mean,
well, it would be a very vulnerable experience. It would be bad enough if just a passing American started pointing this out to you. You'd wonder, who the heck is this guy? But when there's a person sitting across from you who has the power of life and death over you, someone who is notorious for being vicious, I mean, that had to be particularly chilling for Colonel Jefferson and others, because this person not only knew everything about him, but was under no compunction whatsoever to treat him well. That's a huge pressure on the mind of Colonel Jefferson. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. He spent and then he spent 9 months as a POW. But since he was an officer, they actually honored the Geneva Conventions, so he wasn't tortured and they didn't make him work. And that was because. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, notably, he was not tortured, and he did not have to work because he was an officer.
Yes.
Now I find that interesting, just by virtue of the fact that yes, America was officially and behind the scenes pretty racist at the time, but gee whiz, compared to the Nazis, I mean, they elevated it to a high religion, for Pete's sake. I mean, they were as bad as the worst Klansmen in this country. I'm surprised they would have honored anything about what they considered to be subhuman. I mean, they were the worst pack of racists on the planet, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
When Alex got to his POW camp, he was actually shunned by the white prisoners. And because
I was going to ask you about that, how he was treated. Okay, he's an officer, but the only black officer there, I'm sure.
Yes, because the some of the POWs had been there for 2-3 years, and they never heard of the Tuskegee Airmen or any black pilots. So when they saw Alex, they were suspicious, and they didn't want anything to do with him. And about a week later, a group of B-17 pilots that were shot down came in, and they looked at Alex. They said, "Well, you must be a Tuskegee Airman." He said, "Yeah, of course." And they said, "Well, if you'd have been with us, we wouldn't have been shot down." Well, at that point, he rose to the top of the heap. He became a hero among the other POWs.
Yeah, that skyrocketed his reputation in one day.
Wow.
He all of a sudden was accepted.
Take a call from Mary in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. Hello, Mary.
Hello. I have a very interesting story about the Germans. My uncle Andrew was shot down over Germany, and he was in a prisoner of war. And his brother, my Uncle John, was in Patton's Third Army. And he was in Patton's Third Army, and they liberated this Nazi German concentration camp. Now, of course, these two brothers didn't know this until they got stateside. And I just think it's just such a beautiful story. I usually tell this every Memorial Day to somebody on a radio.
If I may, do you know which concentration camp it was? Because
no, I don't know. Both of my uncles are passed on now.
Oh, okay. And
is there anybody in the family? Anybody kept any records, or would it be possible for you to find out?
Maybe my one uncle that's still living in Arizona. Maybe he has the information.
Well, my guess would be that the Rotts would be interested if you were to find out. Am I correct, gentlemen, that you would like the caller to go to DynastyMediaNetwork.com?
Okay,
if you come across that?
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Dynasty, I'll repeat that, DynastyMediaNetwork.com. Go ahead, Michael and Sheldon.
Actually, in the film, we have my wife's uncle. We were interviewing him just for posterity, and we've talked to him for 50 years. I've known him. He's never talked about his experiences in World War II. And in this last interview, while we're doing the film, he started telling he was with the Patton's Third Army, and he was one of the liberators of Dachau. Well, we just kept the film going, and he was at Dachau, and he told almost the exact same story as Lieutenant Colonel Jefferson. They were there within 24 hours of each other.
Wow.
Okay.
And the story was just almost word for word what they saw.
Well, I will contact my uncle in Arizona tomorrow.
Okay.
And have his son go on the internet.
Very good. That would be a wonderful thing. Thank you for your call, and we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Jim Bohannon Show. We're talking with Michael and Sheldon Rott. They are two of the moving forces, along with Michael's mother and Sheldon's wife, Carol Rott, moving forces behind this movie, The Luft Gangster, the story of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson, who was a Tuskegee Airman, and this movie, shown recently at the GI Film Festival in Washington, chronicles his story. I must ask you, what was the most surprising thing that you learned from Colonel Jefferson?
Well, that's a tough one. Colonel Jefferson was a teacher after the war for 35 plus years, and it really shows in the movie. You would think he's about 70 years old. So I've learned so much from him, but one thing that he commonly says is, he says, it's all part of life. So if he gets down, or if there's a struggle, he just kind of tucks his chin, he keeps going. He says it's all part of life, and he maintains a positive attitude. And I when I have a tough day, I look at him and what he's been through, and I say, you know what? It's all part of life, and what's my excuse?
It's a man this is a man who has every reason to have been very deeply bitter.
Bitter, right.
I gather he is not.
He's the exact opposite. He is the most lovable, gentle, humble, amazing guy. In fact, he every year his elementary school students throw a picnic for him. They throw an elementary school reunion picnic. I don't know of any elementary school in the country that has a reunion, but it's all for him. And when he was a teacher, we have people that are in their 60s that said, the whole time I was a student, I had no idea he was a Tuskegee Airman. We just loved him because he was Mr. Jefferson. Now he's even a bigger hero to me now. He just never, he's so humble. I mean, you would never know he's had a hard day in his entire life, but he's been through it.
That is so outstanding. We will come back and we'll talk some more of this remarkable man and this remarkable movie. 1-866-50-JIMBO, and we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the Jim Bohannon Show. These days, everyone is wondering how to make more money. They want it for their families, they want it for their retirement, and they want money to protect themselves from whatever might happen next. Well, let me tell you about the Forex market and how it could be exactly what you need to generate new wealth for yourself. But first, let me give you an idea of just how big this market is. $5.3 trillion is traded every day in the Forex market, and that would be enough to pay off the entire U.S. national debt in 4 days. Now there's a way that average Americans like you and me could profit from foreign currencies, but not enough people know how to make this foreign exchange or Forex market work for them. It's time to change that, and I know exactly who can help you do just that, the team at Market Traders Institute. If you'd like to earn your share of this opportunity, visit bigmoneyprofit.com and learn how Market Traders Institute can get you started in the Forex trading market. They've been training new Forex investors for the past 22 years, and every day thousands of traders come to Market Traders to get the latest money-making strategies for the Forex market. Every day you waste is another $5.3 trillion of which you could have been a part. Visit bigmoneyprofit.com today to get your own Forex Big Money Profits. That's bigmoneyprofit.com. We continue our discussion with Michael and Sheldon Rott about the Luft Gangster movie, and Joe calls in from Abilene, Texas. Hello, Joe.
Oh, what an honor. Good grief. Former aircraft commander on the C-130B&E in Vietnam, and I just wanted to place something out here that I've seen exuded from a lot of these great officers, black officers in the services, and they really project an armor of quiet nobility. Just get along, do their job, and do it quite well. And I went to pilot training in Ground Zero, Selma, Alabama, Craig Air Force Base, and there were very few, if any, blacks anywhere to be seen at the time. They were usually stationed in other bases, and I was subsequently stationed overseas flying in Vietnam as an aircraft commander there. Coming back here, the point I wanted to make was we were tagged as the Tactical Aircrew Command Aircrew of the Year nominees, and I had a choice of a navigator. And so I said, well, who's got the lowest circular air average in the wing? And they said, well, that will be, can I use his name? I'd like to salute the guy.
Sure.
It's Captain Cliff Steger at the time. And Cliff, if you're out there, God bless you, sir. He'd be about my age in his early 70s. Anyway, I said, who's got the lowest CEA, circular air average, bullseyes? And he said, well, Cliff Steger. And I said, well, let's get him. He said, short pause, he's black. I said, well, I only have one question. He said, what's that? I said, where are all the qualified white navigators? I said, get him on my crew right now. And it was an incredible association, and I still saw the wounds from his training and coming up to the crew, and he just fell into the stew pot with us. I mean, it was just a great relationship. There was never any kind of difficulty with the crews or anybody around, and people just knew not to bring up the issue around me if they even intended to. And so when you have this kind of an association with these pilots who are, or crew members who are just simply qualified. Now, Benjamin Davis had a son who was a 4-star general in the Air Force, as I remember, in Vietnam. And he was qualified to fly fighter aircraft and C-130s, and would typically just jump into an aircraft, just show up in your operational squadron, and say, "I'm flying with you today," and away he went. He was one of the most respected people imaginable, and if you can find his biography, it's in print in paperback. I think it'd be well worth a read, and really, I think, flesh out the point you're making
Outstanding.
Here. And my salute to Alex, by the way.
Well, thank you, Joe. We do appreciate that. By the way, before you comment on what Joe had to say, there are others who would like to talk with you. Can you stay into the next hour?
Sure.
That'd be wonderful. Very good. So if you're on the line, we will get to you. Very good. If you're on the line, we will get to your call. So stay with us. But Joe, of course, spoke of experiences in Vietnam, roughly 20 years after World War II. I guess we made progress, didn't we?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we still got work to do, but we've come a long way.
Fair enough. All right, very good. Again, 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626. May I assume that Full Measure is, excuse me, previous interview, that the Luft Gangster movie is going to be in theaters?
We have already done a theatrical tour. We did it about 25, 30 different cities, and we're at the end of the theatrical tour, but we are now available on iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play as of
very
this
good.
Sunday.
We're going to have to pause on that note, and we will speak off air, and then we'll come back live. So if you are on the line with a phone call for our guests, we will have Michael and Sheldon Rott with you in the next hour here. I'm Jim Bohannon. This is Westwood One. Hi there, and good evening, good morning. Glad to have you with us on the Jim Bohannon Show from Westwood One Radio. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626, and online you'll find us at jimbotalk.net. You can follow me on Twitter at Jimbo Talks, as we are talking, continuing our discussion with Michael Rott, the director of the movie The Luft Gangster. His father, Sheldon, who was the co-producer and music director on the film. It is the story of retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson from the U.S. Air Force in World War II, a Tuskegee fighter pilot, today 92 years of age, and his story is told in this compelling movie. Linda calls in from Akron, Ohio. Hello, Linda.
Hi, I'm so excited to hear your program tonight. Thank you for broadcasting it. I'm calling because my dad was a navigator bombardier on a B-24, and he told me how the Tuskegee Airmen escorted their bomb runs, and he had nothing but high praise for them. Subsequently, he was shot down, and he became a POW, and he told about how the Germans had newspaper clippings about him, and he was from a town that didn't have any more than 500 people, if it had that many people.
Wow. Another testimony to what the Tuskegee Airmen did. I would hope that everybody is now aware of their story, although obviously, Michael, you've helped to make people more aware.
Yeah, and you know what? Colonel Jefferson's life is such an example for students and the younger generations that we really, really want to see this movie in classrooms, and we're working hard to figure out how we can do some sort of national distribution to educate kids. In fact, when we were here for the GI Film Festival, and American Airlines sponsored it, and they set us up so we could actually, while we're in the D.C. area, we screened it at 2 high schools. And you wouldn't believe this, the kids enjoyed it, and they were into it, and they had great questions. And we actually did the Q&A with 2 members from the local East Coast chapter of Tuskegee Airmen in the D.C. area, as well as Dr. Eugene Richardson, who is an original, he's a DOTA. DOTA stands for Documented Original Tuskegee Airmen. That's what the original guys are called. So it's been wonderful.
Jim, could I add that
Please.
We, when the local chapter in Michigan saw the film, The Luft Gangster, they invited Mike and I to become members of the Tuskegee chapter, and we are honorary Tuskegee Airmen, and we wear our jackets with pride, and it's just terrific. But what they do, their mission is to keep the story of the Tuskegee Airmen going and keep it live. And well, that's our mission is the same. So it's a pleasure going to the meetings, and we work with the chapters. We're going to actually be at the National Convention. They'll be screening the film, and that's our mission right now. We think the best place for the movie, well, everywhere is the best place naturally, but would be in colleges and high schools. And the kids just don't know enough about. These are the people that were almost the founders of the civil rights movement. They were pre-civil rights movement, and it's just an important story that we want to carry on.
Yeah, even before schools were desegregated, the major impetus forward in this country did take place in the armed forces, and the Tuskegee Airmen were the first real example of that. So yes, so you could easily say that all of this happening a decade before Brown versus Board of Education, it really was the beginning of the modern civil rights movement. Linda, thank you for sharing your story with us. We go to Bob in Leesport, Pennsylvania on the Jim Bohannon Show.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
First time caller. Just wondered if, let me say, I had the privilege of meeting a few of the airmen here. I live just a couple miles from the Reading Airport where they have the World War II weekend, and I had the privilege of meeting a few of them there. The only name I remember was one of them referred to another one as Luke. I don't know if that rings a bell.
I'm not sure. Aren't they amazing? Every one of those guys, they have just such charisma, and they're just so sharp and so humble.
Yeah. I was wondering, Jim, if I might ask a quick question about your location when you were in Vietnam.
Yeah, I was in 3 Corps around Long Bend and the fishing village of Cat Lie for the most part, although I did some traveling out in the field. But
okay, were you at with the 199th in Long Bend when Tet hit?
Yes, that's exactly where I was, with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade.
Okay, well then I was your next door neighbor. I was next company south of you, the 66 Engineer Topographic Company.
I do. I was aware of that group. Thank you, and welcome home, Bob. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much for your call and for your service. Much appreciated. I know that in Vietnam we still had some racial problems. Quite frankly, I witnessed a few of them. Particularly, I was there right after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and there was an incident that flared up at the Enlisted Men's Club in which the whole place, there was a fight that broke out. It just happened to be between a black and a white soldier. You know, there were probably 3 fights a night in the Enlisted Men's Club. There was no big deal, but this was right after the King assassination.
Oh, my goodness.
And instantly, the entire room probably were, I don't know, 70 or 80 guys in there, and instantly, like iron filings on a magnet, the whole room, one side black, one side white. Wow. One MP there who did call in help, and they broke it up. But there was violence later that evening, and it was, I'll be very, very, very candid. I don't think many people know this, but for a while, we carried our weapons armed inside the perimeter, and it was not against the Viet Cong. We were told by our captain to carry our rifles with a full magazine just in case.
Wow.
It was kind of a sad thing. I'm wondering about since he is still such a vital human being, I'm wondering about Alexander Jefferson's thoughts on all that he has seen in subsequent years. He did come back, and he did get the unfortunate welcome inwards to one side and white soldiers on the other side. But he lived through Brown versus Board of Education. He lived through the Civil Rights Acts of 1965. He has lived long enough to see an African-American elected president of the United States. Did you talk to him at all in the movie The Luft Gangster about his subsequent experiences and what he's seen happen in this country?
Yeah, well, the focus of the movie was his experience during the war, and we touch a little bit on his life after the war. But we've got hours of interview footage with him, and we've just had the privilege of being able to hang out with him for 2.5 years working on it. So he's told us quite a bit. And yeah, after the war, he was a public schools teacher, math and science, elementary, for 35 years. But he marched in the civil rights movement. He was there for all of it. In fact, now that he's 94 and he's been alive to see an African American president and all that. Just a few weeks ago at Cobo Center in Detroit, Michigan, the NAACP annual dinner was held, and it was a 10,000-person sit-down dinner. I think it's the biggest dinner in the world. And at that dinner, Lieutenant Colonel Jefferson was presented with the Bronze Star, which is one of the military's highest honors. He actually was entitled to the decoration in the late 40s, 1949 or something, but no one told him about it. He had no idea. And somebody about 6 months ago figured out that he had a Bronze Star coming, and they pinned it on his, Senator Debbie Stabenow pinned it on his chest at age 94 in front of 10,000 people. It was unbelievable. So wow. It's nice to see in this stage of the game at his age that he can get some even further recognition and joy out of the film, and we really just want to carry his legacy and the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen as far as it can go, because an unfortunate reality is that these guys aren't going to be around forever, as you said, and we need to have everybody aware of what they've done to keep the message going.
How many are left? Do we know? I mean,
no, it's tough to say. I know that in Michigan we have 3 fighter pilots, Washington Ross, Harry Stewart, and Alexander Jefferson that are still with us. And I believe there's, I think there was 11 or 12 original guys in the state, and that could be wrong because some of them, it's tough to know if they're hospitalized or if they're not in touch and that. But
sure.
Yeah, but all the guys that are left, they're all in their 90s pretty much.
Yeah. I must ask you, since the Dynasty Media Network has put this together, and a compelling movie it is, are you working on other projects, and what might we expect from you in the future, either at the GI Film Festival or elsewhere?
It's a good question, and right now we are kicking around all kinds of ideas and seeking funding to work on future projects. But
Jim, I might add, and I'm very proud of my son for this. When we started this film, we tried to get funding, and it was very difficult. And what happened was Mike sold his house, and we used the proceeds from the sale of his house to fund the movie. So between that and the credit cards, and but I said, it doesn't matter. It's not an investment. If we don't make money on it, or we do, it doesn't matter. We're telling a story that needs to be told. And Mike's idea is to do socially conscious films. And now we have some other ideas Mike might want to tell you about.
Yeah, sure. So
yeah, please do.
I'm particularly interested in a couple of topics, but we're very close with the blind and visually impaired community. We're from Detroit, and in Detroit, annually, there is an event called the Eye and the Chip, and the Eye, the Brain, and the Auto, which biennially they leapfrog each other. And for about 8 years, we've been filming and this conference, and we're very close to the organization, the Detroit Institute of Ophthalmology. But the meetings, they are actually creating devices that cameras plug right into microchips into a brain to produce artificial human vision. So the story of what blind and visually impaired people go through has not really been told that I've found. And there's also autonomous vehicle technology and all kinds of amazing things that go along with that. Another one, we're interested in talking about the Native American experience in this country, the modern experience, because I feel like that hasn't been done recently, and it hasn't been done particularly well, and I feel like they need a voice. So we have a few other ideas in addition to that, and we're right now kind of toying. It's a huge commitment. Once you hit go, you're knee deep in making a full feature documentary. So we're just trying to see what's the right story and the right film, and how we can procure funding for it.
Well, I certainly wish you the very best. And again, the Rott's filmmaking website, dynastymedianetwork.com. I'll repeat that, dynastymedianetwork.com. And this current movie, the Luft Gangster, Memoir of a Second-Class Hero, you can learn more about that online at luftgangstermovie.com. That's L-U-F-T, luftgangstermovie.com. Thank you so very much for being with us and staying over. It's a wonderful tale, and we want people to learn more about this, and we want them to see the movie. Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours, Jim. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Very good. Thanks. Michael and Sheldon Rott. That's an amazing story. As I said, we've had Tuskegee Airmen on the program before. We will have to find one and have that person on in the not too distant future. As we noted, a perishable commodity, a perishable national treasure. Ladies and gentlemen, take a quick look in the mirror. See those bags under your eyes? You can simply get rid of them. Introducing Genucel.